Okay, so are we on which slide are you on? Coaching active participation. Okay, okay, okay. I don't understand why. I mean, we just check the speed also. Okay, okay. Okay, good evening again. My sincere apologies. I think obviously there was a internet disconnect. It took us about 10 minutes or more to sort it out, but we are back online again, and hopefully I'm coming through loud and clear. So I will start from the beginning of the slide that you see in front of you right now, which is coaching is about active participation and hard work. I was explaining before we got cut that uh, on a scale of passive to active, coaching is a very coaching requires a lot of active participation from the client or the coachee. Now, if as a client you go to a consultant, then the client is more or less fairly passive, right? So, in the sense that the client tells the consultant that this is the problem, the consultant says okay, thank you, I'm the expert. So the consultant takes the problem, spends a lot of time analyzing it, maybe comes back to the client once or twice for questions, and then at the end of the agreed period, maybe 2-3 months, the consultant comes back and gives a solution, which then you as a client have to go and implement. So as a client, you're passive. Once you give the problem to the consultant comes back. Till then you don't do really much about the problem because you're waiting for the answer. So the client is passive. Consulting from a client's perspective is a more passive participation. If you take mentoring, for instance, so if you go to a mentor, you say, okay, you go to a respected person in your profession and say, please be my mentor. Let's say this grandmaster, the young Indian grandmaster, reaches out to Vishwanathan Anand and says, Mr. Anand, please be my mentor. The mentor, by definition, is a senior person who has a lot of experience, a lot of wisdom, and based on his experience and wisdom, he guides you in terms of. So Vishwanathan Anand will then guide this person in terms of saying, okay, these are the kind of tournaments you need to play, and oh, by the way, there is this excellent chess coach that I know. I will put you in touch with that coach. That coach can coach you in this particular area of weakness, and so on. So here again, the client is not as passive as in the case of going to a consultant, because when the mentor suggests a course of action to the mentee or the client has to actually perform that action, like going and finding a coach and working with the coach to improve the process, the knowledge of chess and so on. So again, not very passive, but not very active either, because the mentor has at least half a role, at least 50% of the role is being played by the mentor. But coaching, on the other hand, the involvement or the participation from the client or the coachee is extremely high, because the coach's role is to ask powerful, penetrating questions. The coachee has to introspect and think. And more importantly, when an action plan has been developed by the coachee in consultation with the coachee has to go and implement it 100%. Otherwise, the coaching engagement will not work in bringing the desired skill set or change in behavior that is the objective of the coaching engagement. So coaching is requiring a very active participation, a lot of hard work from the coachee. And many people who get into coaching are surprised by this, because they think, oh, I have gone to a coach. The coach is an expert. He will tell me what to do and I will have to do it. Actually, not so. The coach doesn't tell the client what to do. The coachee has to discover for himself or herself what to do. And the coach is the process owner or the process expert who takes you along that path of discovery. Coaching is about the client collaborating with himself in partnership with the coach, right? Sorry. In partnership with the coach, the client is the content expert. In the sense, the content for a coaching engagement is the coachee or the client himself or client herself. So the coach only brings to the surface what is within the client and makes the client aware of it. So the content expert is the coachee, because the coachee knows what it is that he or she is looking for and what does he or she have in terms of motivations and so on and so forth. But the coach is a process expert in eliciting from the coachee all the richness that is inherent within himself or herself. Coaching is about bringing to the fore what lies within the client. It is a process of self-discovery to unlock the potential within the client. Now, in a coaching engagement, one as a client or a coachee, one has to answer these questions all the time. So if a particular objective is set out by the coachee, and coachee says, Mr. Coach, I want to talk about this. So the question that the coach will ask is, why is this objective important to you? And there will be a discussion of 5 or 10 minutes on this specific question. Why is this objective important to you? And therefore, by thinking about this deeply, a lot of stuff that lies within the client comes out to the top in terms of what is the subconscious reason why this objective is important to you. At the end of a coaching session, or at the end of a coaching engagement, typically the coach might ask the client a question. Okay, so now that we've finished with our 1 hour coaching session, what did you learn about yourself today? It's time, so questions like why is a particular objective important, or what did you learn about yourself today, might seem very silly and stupid. But believe me, when you go through this process, you'll realize what value as a client one can get out of it. So, that's the whole point. The thing is, the power of a good coach is directly proportionate to the power of the questions that he asks. So powerful questions elicit insightful answers. So the coach is a process expert in figuring out how to word a question, when to ask a specific question, when to hold back, when to step in which area to ask a question. So with all this skill that comes into play, insights are generated for the client, right? Now, coaching is not passive. It has a bias towards action. At the end of every coaching session, an action plan is agreed upon between the coach and the client has to actually do it. Otherwise, it just remains a conversation on paper. Something has been noted down, but nothing happens. Change will not happen unless action happens. Client has to be honest and open, most of all to himself or herself. There's a very important thing, that a very deep thing that once was told to me by one of the person who was my coaches earlier on in my career. And he told me, look, Shyam, here's the thing. You can lie to the whole world. You can lie to your near and dear ones. You can lie to your loved ones, but you cannot lie to yourself. You cannot hide from yourself. Deep within, you cannot lie to yourself. You can say all kinds of things to all kinds of people, but in the heart of hearts, even subconsciously, maybe consciously you may not know, but subconsciously you know who you are, what you are. So a client has to be honest and open in order to acknowledge what the issues are and the issues that he or she wants to work on. Please remember, one cannot coach someone who does not want to be coached. And I've said want in inverted commas here, in quotes, within quotes, because the client might say, no, I want to be coached, but within himself, he may be resistant. So we as coaches, when we evaluate a person for coachability, sometimes we come and say, this person cannot be coached, or the problem that he or she has cannot be coached. Maybe he needs a counselor, or maybe he needs a mentor. So you've got to be open and honest to himself. The client has to be honest to himself or herself to be able to be coached successfully. The client also needs to have goals. They cannot be coaching without a goal. So if a client, if an HR organization comes to you and says, what, I'm going to appoint a coach for you, then the coachee has to do the work of sitting down and figuring out, okay, this is the coach, and these are the areas that I want to work on. At the end of this coaching engagement, I want to be, somewhere down the line better in these areas, or whatever it is. But a goal has to be there, goals have to be there. And finally, as a client, as a coachee or a client, one cannot expect instant, easy results or ready-made answers. The coach is not a consultant. He is not a strategic expert. He is not a mentor. The coach's job is not to give instant ready results or ready-made answers. In fact, it is not possible. It might be even dangerous for the client, because then the client is not going through the process of self-actualization and understanding what makes him or her tick. So being in a coaching relationship requires a lot of commitment and a lot of patience, both from the coach and from the coachee. Right? So just to put a different perspective onto this, there are 4 stages of learning, right? There is unconscious incompetence going all the way down to unconscious competence, right? So unconscious incompetence is blissful ignorance. I am incompetent in some area. I don't even know I'm incompetent. So I'm blissfully ignorant. मेरे को पता ही नहीं कि I'm very bad at this. So it's fine. That's fine. The next level is conscious incompetence. That, hey, you know what? I'm not good at this, and I know I'm not good at it. So, I know this is my area of weakness, right? So this leads to anxiety, leads to curiosity, leads to excitement. So there are positive emotions with conscious incompetence and negative emotions. Positive emotions are, hey, you know what? How can I become competent in this area? Now that I know, at least I know that I don't know. How do I learn? There's curiosity and there's excitement saying, hey, you know what, I've actually identified that I'm incompetent or not very good at this. I'm so positive now that I can find a way. I've got this coach, I can work with this coach, and the next 6 months I can improve, and I'm very excited about it. There's also anxiety and worry, I'm not good at this, therefore do I move. So it depends on each one of us as individuals whether we take anxiety or worry out of our conscious incompetence, or do we look at it from curiosity and excitement perspective and say, hey, you know what, I have discovered what the weakness is and I can therefore work on it. The next stage of learning is conscious competence, and I've circled that because it is probably the most important stage. Why is it better than unconscious competence? I'll explain. The conscious competence is I know I'm good at it, and therefore I have reached the stage with a lot of effort. I have reached this stage with a lot of practice. I'm confidence. I've got a lot of confidence in my ability. I've got self-knowledge. I'm good at it. I know I'm good at it. I have to think about it, and every time I do this, I do it with the full knowledge that this is what I have to do. I know I can do it, and therefore I will do it. That's conscious competence. Unconscious competence, while seemingly the highest stage of learning, one has to be careful, okay? Because unconscious competence is actually a habit. For instance, we are not born with the ability to ride a bicycle. We learn to ride bicycle. It takes us 2-3 days, 4 days to learn how to balance. But once you learn how to bicycle, even if you don't ride a bicycle for 20 years, you'll never forget it. Okay, it is ingrained in your DNA. So it has become a habit. You can get onto a bicycle after 20 years for the first time. You will drive in auto mode. You will ride the bicycle in auto mode. You will not fall. Okay. But being in auto mode and being in habit, which is unconscious competence, it is so ingrained in your DNA that you don't have to think about it. It can also lead to overconfidence in the business context, in the context of living your life, even outside business contexts. So unconscious competence can be a bit of a dangerous place to be, right? So the reason I've circled conscious competence is in the 4 stages of learning between unconscious competence to unconscious incompetence to unconscious competence. Conscious competence is where one would hope to reach at the end of a coaching journey. So all the stuff that I spoke about in the previous slide can be encapsulated in saying that you reach the 3rd stage of learning, and if you're able to stay there, you have got the same level of confidence. The competence level is the same between conscious and unconscious. Competence level is the same. It's just that how ingrained is it, and how much do you constantly remind yourself that you have to keep getting better at what you're doing. So that's where a coaching assignment can leave you, from unconscious incompetence to conscious competence. So last couple of slides, and I'll end it here. You've heard of the saying, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. So is coaching akin to giving a man a fish, or is it teaching a man to fish? Well, actually, the answer is neither of the above. Coaching is neither giving a man a fish, nor is it teaching a man to fish. So in this example, what is coaching? Coaching is making a man realize that he knew how to fish all along. Think about this for a minute and you'll realize how powerful this is. Coaching is making a man realize at the end of a coaching session, the coachee will realize, oh my God, this is the power I had in me. I've discovered this. I've discovered my motivations and my inherent capabilities. I could fish all along, and now I'm going to become a damn good fisherman, and the path is clear and I can go forward. So that therefore is the power of coaching. And let me end by saying that the deepest and the most long-lasting learning, and this has been proved repeatedly by behavioral scientists, by psychologists, by people who observe, by professors, by people who observe human behavior, the deepest and the most meaningful and powerful learning is the learning that comes from within. If there are 2 cases where somebody comes and tells me a solution, that's case number 1. Case number 2 is somebody works with me for me to find the solution for myself. Believe me, the solution I found for myself will remain with me forever. What has been given to me as a solution by somebody else, I might forget after a few years. So that's basically what I had in terms of exposing you to the power of coaching, the concept of coaching, etc. I hope this has been a useful session. I'll end my presentation here and I throw open the session to any questions that you may have. Thank you very much. Hi, I have here a question from Arindam Ghosh. It is observed across the world that mature consultants, advisors becoming coaches. How would they eliminate the natural influence of consulting or advising nature while becoming a coach? Arindam, thank you very much for this question. It's absolutely a brilliant question. Very, very valid, because this indeed is the central issue in coaching, and one sees very often that it is easy for coaches also to slip into consulting or advising mode, and I can tell you as a coach that sometimes, especially earlier on, when I was new to coaching, it would it, the uh, the instinct is to eagerly jump in and tell the client, hey, you know what, this is the solution. But when you get trained as a coach, uh, you are made to realize as part of your training that you should, as a coach, hold back from doing that. That's one of the most important attributes of a good coach, is to hold back and not give the solution, even though he or she might feel as a coach that, hey, you know what, this is the solution to this person's problem, let me give it to him, right? If the person does that, it is not good coaching practice. Uh, so the natural influence as a coach, the best way and the only way to avoid the natural influence of consulting or advising nature is to be aware and to be very, very disciplined. Coaching guidelines for a coach state very clearly, do not give solutions. Do not offer solutions at the first go, because that is not what coaching is about. So it is either difficult or easy depending on how you look at it. One way to look at it is that, oh my God, it is very difficult to hold oneself back. How can you hold yourself back? I have been a manager and an executive for so many years. I know the answer. Let me give it. It's difficult. It's natural human tendency. But the easy part of it is, if you remember the guidelines that you have as a professional in this field and as a coach, it's a very simple dictum. Do not offer solutions. And as long as you follow that, it becomes easy not to jump in and go from a coach mode to a consultant mode. I hope I have answered that question. If you have any further follow-up question to that or any further clarity, please ask.